Greetings, mortals, peers, and queers. I got some good news for you today in today's episode of me documenting the steady fall of our democracy. GOP leaders are literally speechless about the good news on jobs. How strong have the U.S. job numbers been since recent months? Strong enough to make Republican leaders literally at a loss for words. President Joe Biden held a White House event on Friday to sign an executive order on abortion access. We talked about that earlier in this show. But before getting to the topic at hand, the Democrat wanted to focus some attention on some unrelated matter, the latest good news on job creation, from Joe Biden's remarks. Quote, "Today, the Labor Department has reported that we have added 372,000 jobs last month. 372,000. Here's why that's important. Our private sector has recovered all the jobs lost during the pandemic and has added jobs on top of that. We have more Americans working today in the private sector than any other day under my predecessor. That's Donald Trump. More than any other time in American history today. In the second quarter of this year, we have created more jobs than any other quarter under any of my predecessors in nearly 40 years before the pandemic." That is some amazing news. It was tough to blame the president for wanting to highlight the good news. For one thing, his approval rating sinks. It stands to reason that the White House would want to tout the good news about such an important issue. For another, much of the public probably doesn't realize that the job market has soared with unexpected and unprecedented strength under Biden, and that the unemployment rate is lower now than any point throughout the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. What's more, as we discussed last week, the economy has created 2.63 million jobs so far in 2022, and the year's only half over. By any fair measure, that's an extraordinary total, more in line with what we expect to see in a full year. In fact, more jobs have been created in the last 6 months than any full year under Donald Trump's term. It was against this backdrop that the House and Senate Republicans leaders said nothing. The GOP has largely decided to pretend to not notice the job growth at all, because of course they did. They are ghouls. They are just playing politics. They will ignore all that is inconvenient to them. It seemed at least possible that leading Republican officials would argue with Democrats that they didn't deserve the full credit for the economic recovery, or perhaps they'd argue that the robust job growth was inevitable after the 2020 recession. Or maybe they'd say that Trump was somehow responsible for creating economic conditions that he had nothing to do with. But Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy instead ignored the economic news altogether. No press releases, no tweets, no public comments. They literally found themselves speechless, just like last month, and the month before that, and the month before that. As regulars may recall, it was more than a year ago when we saw the worst month job growth since Biden's inauguration. In April 2021, the economy created 269,000 jobs. Under normal circumstances, that would have constituted a great total. But with the country still climbing out of its pandemic-driven hole, April 2020 report was a disappointment. Republicans wasted no time pouncing on that data then, blaming the Democrats for the shortfall. But now that we're doing so much better, they are just ignoring it entirely. They're just playing politics. Anyways, I'm going to wrap the episode up there. The article goes on for a long while. You can read it. I will link it in the description of my YouTube channel. Also linked in my YouTube channels, the Discord you can debate me on, the Patreon you can support me on, the Twitter you can follow me on. And with that, that's today's episode. I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good day.